So in this particular episode, what we will be covering is question number 36, Margie of SPR's exam kit. Okay, so what we've been given is that Margie is a public limited company and has entered into several share related transactions during the period and wishes to obtain advice on how to account for them, right? On 1st May 20x2, Margie granted 500 share appreciation rights (SARs) to its 300 managers. So 500 share appreciation rights, 300 managers. All the rights vested on 30 April 20x4. So May, right? So that means exactly 2 years after. They can be exercised from 1st May 20x4 up to 30 April 20x6. At the granted, the value of the SAR was 10, okay, on 1st May 20x2, and it was estimated that 5% of the managers would leave during the vesting period. 5% out of 300, right? So 15, okay, and then after that would leave, and the fair value of this R is as follows. So 30 April 20x3 was this was this, and then this was this, right? So all of the managers who were expected to leave employment did leave the company as expected before 30 April 20x4. So they did leave all the managers, okay, before 30 April 20x4. So 5%, 30, 15 of them left, right? So on 60 on April 20x5, okay, 60 managers exercised their options when the intrinsic value of the right was 10.5, okay, and were paid in cash. Margie is confused as to whether to account for the SAR under IFRS 2, share-based payments, or IFRS 3, IFRS 13, I mean, fair value measurement, and would like advice as to how SARs should have been accounted for between the grant date and 30 April 20x4. X5, I mean. Margie issued shares during the financial year. Some of these shares were subscribed for by employees who were existing shareholders, and some were issued to an entity, Griff, which owned 5% of the Margie's share capital. Before the shares were issued, Margie offered to buy a building from Griff and agreed that the purchase price would be settled by issue of shares. Margie would require how to account for this, so the value of the building will be the thingy, right? Okay. So, advice directors of Margie on the various above requests. Margie has entered into a contract with a producer to purchase 350 tons of wheat. The purchase price will be settled in cash at the amount equal to the value of 2,500 of Margie's shares. Margie may settle the contract at any time by paying the producer an amount equal to the current market value of 2,500 of Margie's share, less than the market value of 350 tons of wheat. Margie has no intention of taking physical delivery of the wheat. The directors of Margie are unsure as to whether this transaction is a share-based payment and require advice as to how to account for this in the financial statement. So first of all, let's talk about this one, employee options, right? Manager options, I mean. So first is share appreciation, right? Appreciation rights. The scope of IFRS 13, and then accounting for SARs, okay, share appreciation rights. IFRS 13, fair value measurements lies when another IFRS or IAS standards requires or permits fair value measurements or disclosures about fair value measurements, right? IFRS 13 specifically excludes transactions covered by certain other standards, including share-based transactions within the scope of IFRS 2. IFRS 2 share-based payment. Right? So, thus, share-based payment transactions, it's outside the scope of IFRS 13, right? And then after that, how do we account for it? Let's give that example as well. Okay. The cash settled share-based payment transactions for cash-based transaction, cash settled transaction, for cash-based transaction, the entity should recognize expense and liability as service is rendered. The fair value of the liability is measured at each reporting date. Any changes in fair value X is recognized in SOPL, okay, in the period. It is remeasured every time and then it is recognized as an expense and liability only, okay. So the SARs would have to be accounted for during the vesting period as follows. How will they be recognized is that basically first of all will be year and then expense and then liability. This is the cumulative figure, right? And then calculation. Or what you could do is that Control X, Control V, calculation. So first year is 30 April 20x3, right? 30 April 20x3. Next is 30 April 20x4. Calculation would be in this period, what would happen is 300 into how much was the people who are leaving? 5%, right? Okay, so into, or what you could do is also that 300 minus 5% into how many options? So 500 options, and then at the date was 10, right? No. At the closing period, 9. Okay. Into 9. No. 500 into 9 into 1 divided by 2. Right? So this is what will be our calculation. So what I'll do is copy this whole thing and then paste it. So this is my expense, right? Okay, same thing. Liability will be same figure, right? And then after that, the next thing that I would do in the next year is that again same thing, but what I would just change is this figure. Okay, so what is my change in fair value? 12, right? I mean 11, and then this will be 2 out of 2, right? Boom. So my figure will be copy and then paste, right? This 5% is not working. Let's see if this works. No, this also does not work. To 95%, we can do that directly. Okay. So this is our total expense, right? So what I will do is I'll just switch this particular thing. Okay, it's always the case, you know. So now this is a cumulative figure. Okay, so we just need to evaluate the change, right? So what we will need to do is that subtract this minus this. So this is our expense for that particular year. Okay, yep. So this is our total settlement liability that we have recognized until now, right? So what we will do is that copy this thing, paste it over here, paste on link. Then no, I don't need number 2 right now until a liability is settled. The entity must remeasure the fair value. Must remeasure the fair value of the liability at each reporting date and the date of settlement, with any changes in fair value recognized in profit or loss. So when did we make the settlement? Profit or loss for the period, you could say that as well, right? So liability on 1st May 20x4 is, how much is it? $1567500, right? And then after that, what else did we do? We did few things, okay? So what else did we do was that we made a settlement, right? There was a settlement. How many? 60 managers exercised their options, right? So 60 managers. So we paid, cash paid, right? Cash paid is 60 into 500 into how much was it during that period? When did they exercise it? 30 April 2005, right? So 12 into, no, this is exercise, right? So 12, no, 10.5, right? That's the settlement thingy. Intrinsic value was that much, right? So they just paid us that much, or we just paid that much, you could say, which will be, so cash paid me will be same figure, and then this figure will be 60 into 500 into 10.5, 315, right? 315,000 dollar, 315,000, and then means would be the balancing figure, right? Balancing figure, so which would basically be what would be our closing liability at the period. It would be, so 300, no, not 300, 5% is already gone, so that means what would be, so 300 into 95%, we could do this, right? 300 into 95% minus 60. This is our remaining employees, and then how much was their expense into 500 into 12, right? At the year end is 12. Yep. So year end is 12, and then anything else that we need to account for? Nope. So this figure will be this figure minus this plus this, okay? This is our expense. Balancing figure, okay? For the year, okay? So opening was this was this, the change was this much, right? So what we can do is that let's take this whole figure over here. I don't need to do it. Just copy and paste it, right? So once this is there, the fair value of the liability would be $13.50, at 30 April 20x5, and the expense for the year would be $97,500. Okay, so what you could even think is that the total expense for the company would be uh, so basically what has happened is that, so if you were to do it over here, you would get the same amount of thingy, okay, because you've already accounted for the paid out amount, right? So the difference is only that this minus this figure, okay? So suppose if I do minus, then this should be minus as well, right? And then the difference between this amount and this amount will be this minus this will be 217,500, right? So that's how much the liability has been reduced by. Okay, so the expense for that particular period is only this much because this much has been paid out by the company. That's why. Okay, that's what I was trying to basically tell you. So if the expense would not have been changed, then what would have happened is that the expense would have been, so basically what would happen is that it would be this minus this figure, right? So it would be 2,17,500, right? So out of this, since 315,000 has already been paid, that's why it's been reduced. Okay, that's why it's been reduced in net. Okay, in net, I'm talking about in net. So next thing that we need to talk about in this is this one, right? So Margie issued shares during the financial year. Some of these shares were subscribed for by the employees, were an existing shareholders, and some were issued to entity Griff, which owned 5% of the share capital, offered to buy a building from Griff, agreed that the purchase amount would be settled by issue of shares for these two transactions. Okay, so for employees and then for Griff. Okay. Number two, share transactions. Share-based payment is when an entity receives goods or services in exchange for equity instruments or cash based on the value of equity instruments. Okay, the shares issued to employees were issued in their capacity as shareholders and not in exchange for their services. The employees were not required to complete a period of service in exchange for the shares. Thus, the transaction is outside the scope of IFRS 2, right? As regards to Griff, Margie approached the company with a proposal to buy the building in exchange for shares. As such, as such, the transaction comes under the scope of IFRS 2 Griff is not an employee, so the transaction will be recorded at the value of goods received. This means that the building recognized at its fair value building is recognized at its fair value and equity will be created with the same amount. The corresponding entry will be made. Right, so after this, the wheat contract, right? Margie has entered into a contract with the seller to purchase 350 tons of wheat. Purchase prices will be settled in cash at an equal amount to value of 2,500 of Margie's share. Margie may settle the contract at any time by paying the producer an equal amount equal to the current market value of 2,500 of Margie's shares, less than the market value of 350 tons of wheat. Okay, so it's less. Margie has no intention of taking the physical delivery of the wheat. Directors are unsure as to whether the transaction is a service payment or how it should be accounted. Okay. Wheat contract. The arrangement is not within the scope of IFRS, not within the scope of IFRS 2 share-based payment. Why? First thing first, because Margie is not expecting to take delivery of the wheat, right? So it is within the scope of IFRS 9 financial financial instruments because it can settled net and not and was not entered into for the purpose of the receipt or delivery of the item in accordance with the entity's purchase, sale, or usage requirement. Contract. Therefore, contract meets the criteria meets the following criteria of derivative, which is basically its value changes compared to an underlying item, which is shares, right? It is required no or low initial investment, and it is settled in future. Right, so that's the thing with this. IFRS 9 financial instruments requires derivative to be measured at a value to profit or loss unless the entity applies hedge accounting. The contract would be initially recognized at fair value. This will probably be nil as under the terms of commercial contract. The value of 2,500 shares should equate to 350 tons of wheat, right? Derivatives are remeasured to fair value at each reporting date with the gain or losses reported in statement of profit or loss, right? And The fair value will be based on the value of the wheat, and Margie shares the fair value, gain or loss, should be reported in SOPL. Okay, once that's done, okay, so this thing is done, right? Okay, so B number. Entities are investing more time and money in implementing sustainable development practices. A key sustainable development goal set by many entities is to minimize the impact of business operations on the environment. Margie is considering preparing extensive disclosures about its sustainable development goals, including its environmental impacts, discuss recent developments in the area of sustainability reporting, and the potential benefits that might arise when an entity discloses its high impact on the environment to its stakeholders. B number, right? Recent developments. Anything else that we are required to discuss recent developments in the area and the potential benefits? Benefits. Okay. So another thing that we need to talk about is potential benefits of reporting environmental impact. Right. So in this case, a sustainability report details the entity's economic, social, and environmental effects.